Hello, first grade. Welcome to art class. I'm so happy to be your art teacher again this year. You probably remember me from kindergarten last year, and now you're big first graders. So I'm looking forward to a fun year with you. As Mrs. Wright probably told you, you're going to do art with me once a week. And so how that will work is I'm going to make a video just like this with me talking and teaching you an art lesson every single week. And your mom or dad or somebody at home can help you find that in the Google Classroom in your art class. So you'll see a video every Wednesday because Wednesday is your normal art day. And you'll have a whole entire week to watch the video. You can watch it more than once if you need to. And then to do the project, okay? So you're gonna get the video on Wednesday, and then you need to have your art done and send me a picture of it by the next week on Wednesday. If your parents are watching, let them know that inside of your Google Classroom, there is a video that shows them how to either use an iPhone or a Chromebook or a smartphone to take a picture of your artwork so that you can send it back to me in Google Classroom where everything is collected all together for me. So I'm looking forward to seeing your project. And now let's talk a little bit about the things that you're going to need for this week's project. So I will post a list for you also, but just for now, you need to know you got to have a piece of paper. And for this, it's okay to just use, if you have printer paper at home or just some kind of plain white paper. Don't use the special paper that I sent home yet. Let's stay with just some plain white paper of some sort. You'll also need a crayon, a white crayon. Do you have a white crayon? I hope so. If you have a new pack of crayons, it probably came with a white one, so we're going to use that. But if something happens and you cannot find a white crayon, you can ask mom or dad if they have a candle like you light for Christmas or for dinner time, a white candle, because we can use that too instead of a white crayon. Okay, so find one of those. We already talked about the paper. You're going to need to use your watercolor paints for this. So make sure that you have your brush with the paints and also a little cup of water for rinsing. And you should probably have maybe a couple of paper towels too. So go ahead and gather those things. Once again, it was your paper, a white crayon or a white candle. Get permission first for the candle. Your watercolor paints with a brush and paper towels and a little cup of water. So go gather that and I'll meet you back here in a minute for our project. Hi, first grade, welcome back. These are the things that I asked you to get. You have a piece of paper, you have your box of crayons with a white crayon in it, your paints with a brush. I also have a larger brush that I'm going to use, and a pencil with an eraser. Okay, so this is how we're going to start. Let's put everything aside for right now except for your pencil. And let me zoom in just a little bit so that you can see my picture, picture of a piece of paper here a little bit closer. There we go. Okay, all right. I'd like you to put your position this way. It's stretched out long like a placemat. It's not like this. It's not tall and skinny. It's like a placemat. We call this landscape or horizontal. You don't have to remember that now, but in art class, these are some words that you're going to learn in all the years you're here with me at school. So this direction like this is called landscape or horizontal. So what I want you to do is put your hand on the paper, maybe over here to the side, okay? And then just right above your tallest finger there, I want you to use your pencil and make a little bitty dot. Can you see that little dot that I put there? Okay. And then down at the bottom of your hand, I want you to put another dot. Now my hand is way bigger than yours, so you can see that my hand reaches all the way across the whole paper. I bet your hand is probably maybe about this big. The reason why we're doing this is because we're going to write our name. And I want you to make your letters of your name as tall as wherever your dots are. So if you have a big hand and dots this far apart, your letters are going to be really tall. If you have a smaller hand, your letters are going to be shorter, okay? But we're trying to do our letters as tall as we can right across the middle of the paper. So my name is really long. My first name is really long. My last name is really long too. So I'm going to make up a name for today just for fun. And I'm going to use a name Amy because it's a nice short name. And let me show you what I want you to do first. So first, you're going to make your A. We're going to be using all capital letters. Okay, so here's my capital A. Look it, here's the dot up here. Here's the dot down here. I made my letter really tall, just like the dots. Now, if you want to, you can make your letter even taller than your dots. Remember, if you had short dots like this, you can make your letter even taller than that, okay? But I don't want it any smaller than how big your hand is. Okay, so there's my letter A, so I know where my dots are. And now my next letter, if I was going to do the name Amy, I would start right here and I would do a big letter M. See how I'm using all capitals again? So it comes all the way up to the top here, close to the top of the page where my dots are. Down here, it comes all the way down at the bottom. And now I'm going to put my last letter. If my name was really Amy, it would be a Y. So I'm putting A-M-Y. And then when I'm done with that, I can go back and erase these dots because I don't need those anymore. Let me turn my paper over and give you another example because somebody might have a really long name. So let's say we have somebody in class named Jonathan. And Jonathan's hand maybe is about, let's say Jonathan's hand is about this big. Okay, see the dots? But he has a lot of letters in there, so he has to make sure that his letters will fit across the page. Sometimes he might have to make his letters a little skinnier. So let's say Jonathan starts with his J like that. And in first grade, I can't remember. I don't remember if you have a line on the top of your J or not, but I'm going to put one there. So if I'm wrong, you can let me know. Your teachers are telling you the right way how to do it. And then the next letter in Jonathan is an O. I'm going to make a tall O, and it's okay if it's a little skinny because remember, I'm trying to have tall letters. And then he would have an N. So as I'm writing this, I want to say to you that art class, when you're in first grade, you know what, I'm sorry, I just called you guys kindergartners a while ago. I used to do that to last year's first graders all the time. I'm really sorry. You're not in kindergarten anymore. You're in first grade. You know how to make all your letters. Okay, so anyway, what I was trying to say is art class, we do some serious art, but we like to try and have fun. So don't be too upset if you don't like the way your letters look or you think it's crooked or something. That's why we're using an eraser. We can make an erase if we need to. Okay, so let me finish Jonathan. J-O-N-A-T-H. Oh boy, it's getting pretty small. I'm running out of room. Do you think I'll make it? I'm gonna have to make a really skinny A. And remember how I said art class is supposed to be fun? What would happen if I ran out of room here and I didn't have enough room for the whole N? Just this once. How about if it was okay if my N was, I don't know, really, really, really skinny like that? That's okay, because again, we're having fun in art class. So here's Jonathan. Now when Jonathan's all done, he can go back and erase these dots. Okay, first grade, are we doing all right? If you need some help from your parents, you can pause this video, push the pause button, and maybe get some help drawing your name. And then when you're ready, come back to me. I'm going to go back to the side that says Amy on it, though. All right. So if you did pause, now you're back. Welcome back. Oops. The next thing you're going to need is your color crayons. And in your box of crayons, I hope that you have a new box that has a white crayon in it. If you don't, here's a choice. You probably have a yellow crayon. How about if I do mine with yellow today? just because it's going to be easier for you to see what I'm doing on our art project. But if you have white, I'd like you to try and use white because it will feel more magical for you. But I'm going to do yellow just so you can see better. What I need you to do is I want you to go back and color over the top of your pencil line. You'll be able to still see your pencil line through the crayon, and that's okay for today. But see how I'm really, really coloring a thick line. My pencil line was pretty thin, but now I'm taking my time and being careful with my coloring so I'm not scribbling all over. I'm trying to stay on my line, and I'm really making it nice and thick. Okay, and I'll do the A. Now, I want to zoom in a little bit so that you can really see this. So let's zoom in. Where's my zoom? Okay, let's focus again. Now, see how thick? Look at my skinny pencil line. Now look at how thick the line is that I did with the color crayon. Okay, if you want to, if you have room, you can even make them even a little thicker if you want to. But that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that you color nice and dark. I don't want you to press so hard that your color crayon breaks, but I want you to go nice and dark with these lines, sort of like this. Let me go to the side with Jonathan and show you what I don't want. I don't want you to do this. Even though this is very nice, neat writing, and I'm really following my line and tracing my line nicely, it's not very thick, is it? It's also not very dark. So let's look at the difference between these two color crayon marks that I'm going to make. I'm going to zoom in even farther. Isn't this cool? I can zoom in really far with this camera. Look at the difference between this. I'm just coloring and I'm barely pressing. Look at that. You can hardly see that yellow, right? Now look at this. See the difference? We barely see this yellow because we didn't press hard. We're barely coloring. It's almost like we're trying to tickle the paper or something. But this one, we really pressed hard and you can really see a nice lot of yellow. This is what I want on your name. Okay, so let's go back. I'll zoom out again so you can see the whole paper. And we'll go back to the Amy side. Get it nice and focused for us. Okay, so now you can see why I did this with yellow, right? If I had done this with my white crayon, you wouldn't really be able to see that. But since now you know how dark I want you to go, I'm going to do the next one just for fun with this white crayon. And look at this. It is so hard to see. You probably can't even tell where I'm coloring. You can't tell if I'm being neat and tidy or if I'm being messy. So that might be pretty hard if you're trying to use a white. So if you do use the white, just maybe ask mom or dad to take a look at it, or big brother, big sister, grandma, whoever you have. Take a look at it and say, did I do this dark and thick? Miss Blanchfield wants me to make dark, thick lines with my color crayon. And they'll check it out for you. And they'll say, oh, maybe you need to do a little bit darker. Maybe you missed a spot here and there. Because here I am going along with my white thinking I'm doing a good job. And I cannot even tell. So I would have to really take a good look at this. The reason why I'm asking you to use white is because when we get to the painting step, which is almost coming up next, you are going to have a mysterious surprise revealed. You might have even done this way back when you were in kindergarten, before you were big first graders. But we're going to paint right over the top of this crayon. And then magically, all that white that we put on here is going to show up. Okay, so this was my test. Then I used two with white. Sometimes you have little crumbles of crayon on there, so I like to tap my paper like that and get those out of my way. Okay, so if you need to pause this for a minute, you can, and finish your coloring, and then you can come back to it in a minute. When you come back, I want you to be ready with your paints. I brought these paints from school, and here's a little trick. You don't have to do this, but I like to. Before I use my paints, I like to get them a little bit wet. Just a tiny little mist of water, not too much, because it helps them get kind of ready to go. They get nice and juicy and ready for me to paint with them. Okay, so if you have to pause, go ahead, but I'm going to keep going. And then when you come back, you'll see what the next step is. All right. Okay, welcome back. I want to show you that I have a big, huge jug. I use this for my water. You might have a little cup or a little dish. I have a big jug of water, and instead of paper towels, I'm using this old towel. You can see all the paint that I've already smeared on there. So I'm going to have that right next to me here. I'll try to move it so that you can see all these things, because that'll help you learn how to paint properly. Okay, so before we start, I'm going to do mine in the colors of a rainbow. You can do like me, or you can do a different way if you want. You get your brush wet first by dipping it into the water. And then I like to go like this and rub my brush a little bit on the side of the water cup, so if the extra water goes back in the pot. And then I get my color with my brush. Look at how I'm doing that. I'm not scrubbing it around so that my brush gets all messed up. I'm just being nice and kind of rubbing the paintbrush on the paint. And now I'm going to start over here on the side. I'm just going to paint back and forth. I might have to dip in the water again. My paintbrush feels dry. I have to get some more water on it. And then I go back into the paint again. And I'm going to do just a little bit, maybe from the edge of the paper. I have to dip in water again, get some paint again. And then I'm just going to do a red stripe. Look what happened though. It did not stick to the yellow paint, did it? That's the kind of the magic of using color crayons and paint together. All right, now I'm really rinsing. Hear that? I'm really rinsing so my brush is nice and clean because I want to go into the next color. I always rinse my brush before I go into the next color, because then it keeps my colors from getting all mixed up. So now I'm going to go into the orange, which is the next color that I want to use. You might want to use something else, but I'm going to pick orange. And I'm going to go right here. Do you see how I left a little bit of white paint or a little bit of white paper in between that stripe? You know why I did that? I did that because my red that I already painted is a little bit wet still. And if I paint right up next to it, sometimes those two colors, the red and the yellow, will mix up together in a way that is not maybe what I want. If I were, I'll do it on purpose. Look at, if I touch it right up against that red, if the two colors kind of blend together and start to get a little blendy, that's okay, because this is how you learn how to paint. If you get it too close and it mixes in with the other one, we're going to be okay with this for now. But if you don't want it to, you can leave a little bitty space in between. Okay, so time for a new color, right? I might make this one a little wider because I want you to see what happens when we get over to that white crayon over here. So let me see, I had red, orange. If I do yellow right here and I have yellow, I don't think that's going to look as neat, is it? I don't think I'm going to really be able to tell the difference between my yellow crayon and my yellow paper. So I might, just for fun, skip around. Maybe I'll do a blue one next. Does that make sense? If I paint yellow paint on the paper and I have yellow crayon, you won't be able to tell where my yellow crayon is because it'll just be painted over with yellow. So that's why I'm going out of order in the rainbow. But look at there. See what happens? Can you tell yet the magic when I painted over that white part? Might be a little hard to see. So I'm going to zoom in just a second for you. All right, you can see the yellow popped out. But can you see the white? Look at right there. The white that I colored is showing up. Okay, so the blue paint does not stick. The paint doesn't stick to the crayon at all. So that's why it's sort of magical secret writing. And that's why we have to have really dark on the crayons, coloring really dark with the crayons. Okay, now everything else of my letters is going to be with the white crayon. So I can pick anything I want. How about I go back and get that yellow now? Remember what I was supposed to do in between colors? When I change from one color to another in painting, what do? I have to rinse the brush out. That's right. I have to rinse it out really carefully so that I don't get whatever color is already on my brush into the new color of paint. Remember, I was painting blue. If I had a blue brush and I dipped into my yellow paint, I would mess up my yellow paint. Okay, so this is your job. You're going to go all the way across your paper using however many colors you need to. Let's go for green next. I rinsed it out in between, remember? You're going to go all the way across the paper, fill it up with all your beautiful colors. And once your paper is dry, it's going to look better than it does when it's wet. Because right now, the kind of paper that we're probably using, you're probably using paper maybe from your printer, or maybe you're using some other white paper. You are going to see wet paper here with paint on it. But if you wait about an hour until your paper dries, it's going to look really different and really neat. It's going to be all dry, but the paint will still be there. Okay? Does that make sense, I hope? Now, I have one more section. How about purple? I didn't use purple yet. I also didn't use black or brown because I was trying to use some really bright, fun colors, and I didn't really feel like using black and brown on mine. You might have wanted to use that on yours, and that's okay because we're choosing any colors we want. Remember, when your brush gets too dry, even if you're dipping in the paint and you're trying to paint, if it's too dry, you got to get some more water on your brush. So here I go. I'm going to dip into the water. My brush is nice and wet, and then I'm getting into the paint. And I'm just covering up this whole section. Now, I know you all have painted before. I'm sure you've painted, but maybe you learned a couple of new things today. Maybe you learned about rinsing out your brush really well in between. Or maybe you learned about being careful that the colors don't run together. So hopefully you learned something new. Here at the end, I rinse out my brush really nicely, make sure it's nice and clean. And then with your paper towel, you can gently almost paint that water right on the paper towel to help your brush dry out. And then you can leave your brush flat on the paper towel or the towel or rag, whatever you have, and let that dry. We're going to let this dry, and guess what? Your name's already on it, so you don't have to write your name on it. And then I want to ask you to make sure that you save all of the art projects that we do. You can put them up on the wall or something like that, but don't get rid of them because maybe we might want to bring them to school when we're all back together again and show each other. Now, one last thing I want to show you before you leave, let me zoom in, is now you're done with your paints, right? And you want your paints to look just as good as they did when you started. So see all these areas where I splashed? This is a pretty grown-up trick, so I don't know how you're going to do with this. You'll probably do great, but I wanted to teach you so that by the time you're in 8th grade, you're going to be a pro. You'll know how to do this. I have a paper towel, or maybe you have a napkin or a Kleenex. All you need to do is just touch that paper towel right onto that. I don't even really have to try and wipe. I just touch that paper towel like I'm wiping up some tears. If I was crying, I'd just touch a Kleenex to my eye and it would soak up my tears, right? Well, here I'm soaking up the dirty paint. And if my Kleenex gets wet or dirty, all I have to do is just move it to a clean section. So I can come over here and touch it right in there. And it's kind of fun. It's almost like vacuuming up paint. You're sucking it up with the paper towel. So you just touch it right on there. I'm not touching the paint itself. I'm not touching these paint wells. I'm just touching the in-between. And this is kind of a big job, but you're learning how to do some things now that you're getting older. Like maybe you put your dishes in the dishwasher after you're done eating, or maybe you push in your chair, or maybe you make your bed. Well, I'm teaching you how to take care of your paints. So now look at how clean that looks. And then I like to leave mine open for a little while and let it dry out. I like to leave it flat too because I don't want anything to drip and mess up my palette again. This is called a palette. So I just leave it flat like that on my table. I leave my brush flat. I leave my artwork to dry, and then in about an hour, I'll come back and I'll put it all away and clean it up. And that is how you paint. So I hope you enjoyed that. And I can't wait to see this. Don't forget, when your painting is dry, to please take a picture of it and have someone help you load it into Google Classroom so I can see it for you. Okay, so that's it. Yay, good job. Here's my thumbs up. Have a great day.